English language learners within a response to instruction and intervention model. Response to intervention, RTI, or response to instruction and intervention, RTII, as it is called in Pennsylvania, is a multi-tiered systematic approach that integrates assessment, instruction, and intervention to maximize academic achievement and minimize behavior problems. For more information on the RTII process, database decision-making, and instructional processes within the RTII model, please use the links provided at the end of this video.
As from a district perspective, when we think of RTII and our ELL students, we think of it as a seamless process.
Within the RTII framework, there are special considerations that must be taken into account when working with diverse populations.
In a culturally responsive RTII, teachers value the culture and the experiences that children bring to school. They use these experiences to plan for lessons and to connect with the children they have in their classroom. It is important to look at experiences of these children as part of the curriculum.
To provide the viewer with a better understanding of services delivered to English language learners, or ELLs, within an RTII model, this video will highlight best practices used during assessment, instruction, intervention, and database decision-making. Assessment. Screening for English language proficiency. When working with ELL populations, certain types of data must be taken into consideration as part of the RTII process.
That she's struggling so much to get through text.
What's her ELL level?
Expanding.
The World-Class Instructional Design and Assessment, or WIDA, Consortium provides a comprehensive assessment system to assist educators with programmatic placement decisions for ELL students.
The WIDA Access Placement Test is given to students who just enter the district. Usually students that are getting their first experience at schools in the United States. So what that test measures is English language proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
This placement test determines whether students require English as a second language or ESL services.
Once the test is given to the students, they are placed in 5 different levels of English language proficiency. The first level is entering, second level is beginning, then we have developing, expanding, and bridging. So those are the 5 levels of English language proficiency. There is a 6th level that is considered, which is it's called reaching, but WIDA will not measure reaching. That is usually when the student is already in the mainstream without any kind of ESL support. So we always refer as 5 levels of English language proficiency.
In addition to those assessments, we have the Access for ELLs assessment, which is administered across the state of Pennsylvania. It's a state-mandated assessment to measure English language proficiency for our English language learners. That's done in January and February every year. We typically don't get the results back until May, so we can't use those results so much for instructional planning during the school year, but it certainly helps us for placement and grouping moving into the following year and for looking at the way that our kids are growing and progressing in listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Universal screening. Within the RTII process, all students are assessed using universal screening and progress monitoring measures. Under certain circumstances, it may also be appropriate to assess ELLs in their native language.
I recommend really to assess students in native languages, if possible, the first time when they arrive. It is very important as a literacy or as an educator who has worked with bilingual literacy to know the level of literacy in native language.
Instruction and intervention. Providing core instruction that includes research-based strategies to differentiate learning for all students is essential in sustaining an effective RTII model. Instruction that is comprehensive, instead of focusing solely on one component of reading development, is the most beneficial for English language learners. There are several specific recommendations for teachers with regard to literacy instruction. First, ELLs need to strengthen their decoding skills which require intense instruction in phonics at an early age.
Who do you see? Raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand. Who is up there? Who do you see? Daniel, who is that? Bossy R. And what does Bossy R do? Changes the sound. The vowel.
Second, students need increased opportunities to build their vocabulary knowledge, which can be accomplished by exposing ELLs to various forms of print. These learning opportunities also serve to enhance their overall reading fluency. Third, students need chances to practice utilizing vocabulary orally with teachers and peers in order to increase their understanding of structured academic talk. Fourth, explicit instruction with regard to strategies for understanding and analyzing text increases student comprehension of instructional material.
Because we know through literature and research that ELL students can learn initial reading information in terms of decoding and also basic reading skill, but the comprehension of language takes a lot longer. And so we have to be able to give the students the correct amount of support. Hopefully RTI will do that in terms of recognizing their need early on and providing the intervention specifically in the area of comprehension once students break the code for reading.
What's one of the first things you have to put together in that puzzle? What's this piece here? When you're putting all of these things together, what's this one? Sydney?
Text clues.
You need to look at the book at the text clues. Once you know that, what's the next piece of this inferencing equation that you need to do to draw a conclusion? What does the picture of the head stand for? Come on, I all know you know it. What's that picture of that head stand for? Ayuri? Background knowledge. And when you put those two together like the puzzle, Caitlin said, what do you get? What's the I? Brooke? That's the inference, or the conclusion, the other word for it.
Finally, independent reading activities can be helpful in allowing ELLs to practice literacy skills as long as the difficulty level of the material is appropriate and the content is meaningful to the student. There are 5 specific strategies that educators can use to increase effectiveness when instructing ELLs. 1. Use explicit instruction to demonstrate English language use. 2. Provide visuals and concrete objects to increase understanding of concepts. 3. Utilize gestures and facial expressions to provide additional cues when presenting vocabulary. 4. Adjust volume, prosody, and tone when speaking. And 5. Encourage students to provide detailed answers in order to allow them a chance to utilize their vocabulary, as well as receive corrective feedback and praise.
Some of the things that I think benefit them, I have a picture word wall instead of just a word wall, so it has the definition, it has the word, and then a picture that a student can relate to. I find all of my students using that, but my ESL students really benefit from that too.
Types of interventions, Tier 2 and 3.
When we look at Tier 2 in an RTII process for ELL students, we look at both their language needs and their reading needs.
ELL students benefit from interventions that incorporate opportunities for developing oral language skills. When choosing a Tier 2 intervention, it is important to consider the student's previous exposure to literacy instruction in his or her native language and in English. Tier 2 programs should be provided in the same language as the student's core literacy instruction. Teachers should adjust instruction when students experience difficulty, engage their students in interactive activities, foster vocabulary and comprehension development, and provide high-quality explicit instruction on phonemic awareness and decoding.
For a student who is just developing English as a second language and has the support in the regular classroom, they're involved in their regular education instruction, they have an ELL teacher pushing in during their differentiated time, learning new vocabulary, previewing the stories and the vocabulary and the content for the next week.
Think about what sedentary means. I said sedentary means something that you spend most of your time sitting doing. So the guys that are out there fixing the roads and paving the roads, is their job sedentary?
No, because they're not actually sitting.
Right.
They just are standing and building it.
Okay. Can you think of a job that you may consider to be sedentary?
Oh, I'm building,
Okay. A seamstress, sure.
Considerations for data-based decision-making. Along with best practices for instruction and intervention, researchers have outlined some best practices in data-based decision-making within the RTII model.
Progress monitoring, even though we know that there are literacy tools that we use with native speakers, what we are saying is that it's okay to administer these tools, but they cannot be used as the only assessment to look at when I decide tier placement.
An important aspect of interpreting data for ELL students is to recognize that ELL students display different growth patterns than their native English-speaking peers, and that primary language development plays an important role in the acquisition of literacy skills in a second language.
It is important because there is research that has proven that if you're reading at grade level or close to grade level in native language, your chances of using that as a foundation to acquire literacy skills in a second language are great.
It may be typical for ELL students to have different rates of progress than their native English-speaking peers, given their differences in language acquisition and communication skills.
Just like with our data meetings, we like to see how the ELL kids are doing in comparison to the regular ed students on that. It's very interesting to me, too, as an ELL person, to look at the results of the ELL students, and oftentimes we see that their rate of growth and rate of improvement is faster than that of regular education students.
When interpreting data for ELL students, it is recommended that school staff recognize and understand differences between students and use caution in interpreting their data.
You want their foresight scores. They are shining stars. They all got proficient. Everybody in third grade.
Wow.
However, the theme test is quite a different story. Yeah. The theme test, 71% of my group was below basic or basic in comprehension. 100% were below basic or basic and open-ended. Another 57% were below basic or basic overall in reading. Writing, 86% were below basic or basic, and 100% were below basic or basic in grammar.
So something that's interesting to me, and obviously they're different kids, but when we looked at your third grade group, Karen, your kids' strengths were open-ended and writing, and that's your kids' weaknesses. So let's talk about what you're both doing with the kids. In addition to that, we have ELL data meetings that I run with at each building. Sometimes with an individual ELL teacher and the principal, sometimes with a team of teachers, the reading specialist, the literacy coach, the principal, and we meet together to look at the ELL students in isolation. We look at the way the students are growing, the progress that they're showing on different assessments, and we talk about individual kids.
As seen in the video, experts recommend that ELL students should be exposed to the same curriculum as their English-speaking peers. As for all students, assessment information should inform instruction and intervention.
For reading comprehension, 43% of the kids got basic. So that is going to be my focus with this group, is the reading comprehension.
I believe it's the school's responsibility to exhaust themselves in every way, shape, and form to maximize the potential of every kid.
RTII provides a unique framework where ELL students receive exposure to the general education curriculum as well as additional language instruction and receive interventions based upon their level and area of need, as RTII is an inclusive model that supports achievement for all students.